Like, is everyone okay out there? Can we all please just put our private parts away and let's just have a conversation? Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mamas at Home. My name is Tierra LeRae, and today we're going to hop right into it. Now, I would like to offer you guys a disclaimer. First and foremost, we're going to have a very candid and honest conversation. So if you have littles around with little ears, this is not a child-friendly conversation per se. So I would recommend, if now isn't a good time, you got your babies around, you may want to wait to watch this until they're able to go do something else. You're able to kind of have a little time to yourself, because this is not a video that I would personally play around my babies, because we're going to be discussing some sensitive topics. Your choice. Also, this conversation is for adults. So if you cannot handle conversations about sex and or sexual topics, this may not be the video for you. Come back, when you grow up a bit, or it just may not be for you, and that's okay. Now, with that aside, let's go ahead and get into it. So I was thinking, because I do that from time to time, I've been pondering on this idea of sexual liberation and the increased push of casual sex in a very hypersexual culture that is all throughout our music, our movies, the messages that are pushed on social media is now being pushed to children. And we know that there has been, sex scenes and the topic of sex for a very long time. But we have reached a point where it is being jammed down our throat in so many different ways, and it's constant. We now have the growing message as women that we can sleep with whoever we want, whenever we want, as much as we want, and nobody dare say anything about it. You cannot correct it. You cannot criticize it. You cannot judge it. We are able to do with our bodies whatever we want. Nobody can say anything about it under the guise of sexual liberation. It is now appropriate for women to walk around with their breasts exposed and they behinds out. They can wear skirts the size of napkins now. That is really big for whatever. Everybody's cheeks are just out all over the place, just ass cheeks everywhere. In front of children, in public spaces, at movie theaters, at stores, at the mall, it is now appropriate to be as close to naked as possible. Whereas one point, you'd have been on a registry. We have entered into a place where we are allowed to be as lewd, as vulgar, as inappropriate, and as naked as possible, and nobody can say anything, or you are labeled a misogynist, you are labeled a pick-me, and whatever other terms and phrases they come up with these days when you speak against something that is being normalized. We are also now witnessing what is the glamorization of sex work, which we also know to be prostitution. But for the sake of this conversation, we're just going to go with sex work because that is what you now hear more often. Since we have entered into the OnlyFans era, we are witnessing things that I don't think that we ever have. Granted, I suppose the platform is supposed to give individuals control and financial freedom. However, it has been proven that there are serious physical, emotional, and social consequences that comes with sex work. And I'm going to dive into a lot of these different consequences throughout this video as well, because you don't get to look me in my face and tell me that sex is casual and it's something as simple as a handshake, when the data even shows that there are grave consequences and negative effects taking place amongst women and even men when it comes to their overindulgence in porn or their watching of porn in general. Like, something is happening. You don't get to keep, as people like to say, gaslighting us and telling us that it's simple, it's casual, you can kind of do what you want and everything is fine, when we are clearly seeing with our own two eyes that there is so much going on here that meets the eye. The culture surrounding OnlyFans, sex work, and hypersexuality, they're marketing it as though it is appealing, but they're not showing the real consequences. And knowing that young people, teens especially, may be more susceptible to seeing these things, they're coming up believing that this is an option for empowerment. It's a quick payday. It's a quick paycheck. I'm going to do this. But they're not realizing how they are destroying themselves. So when I'm sitting back and I'm observing all of this, because I tend to frequent the Twitter streets. If you know, you know. If you don't, you probably don't need to. But I started really thinking about the negative effects that hypersexuality and casual sex is having on us as a culture. And I was wondering, what does the data show? So as I started digging into this particular topic, what I found was absolutely alarming. Now, I do have my notes here because your girl has a memory of a goldfish. It wasn't all going up here. So if you do see me looking down or looking over, I'm referencing the information that I have here because I do not want to get any of this wrong. And these are not my opinions. This is statistics. Okay? Just want to put that out there. So the first thing I found is that according to the World Health Organization and the CDC, STI and STD rates are rising globally and here in the US, especially among adolescents from ages 15 to 24. Though this age range makes up only about a quarter of the population, they account for nearly half of new STI cases in the US every single year. Syphilis cases alone increased by 26% last year, reaching levels not seen since the 1950s. And that's just syphilis. STIs like chlamydia and gonorrhea are on the rise, often leading to serious health problems, especially in young women. Health organizations will tell us that the solution is more funding for screenings, more mandated data collection, and increased prevention programs. While these efforts may help, personally, I don't think they're getting to the root of the issue. I think there's something very deliberate going on here. As hypersexuality is pushed more in the media onto young adults, STI rates are beginning to climb. In my opinion, I think that's very connected and I think it's very intentional. But we're talking about these World Health Organization and the CDC would say, well, we can combat that by more funding for testing. So we need more funding for testing, but rather than we have the conversation about how we're getting here in the first place, why are STDs spreading more? What is happening? Or they're going to go straight to, oh, well, we just need to test more and pass out more free condoms. Do not upset me. So I like to put definitions on things. So what is the definition of hypersexuality? So hypersexuality is an obsession with sexual thoughts, urges, or behaviors that may cause distress or that negatively affects health, job, or relationships. And I use hypersexuality, but we can also say just an overly sexual culture, because I know some people like to debate what is and is not hypersexuality. But even if you don't use the term hypersexuality, you can clearly see, especially on social media, it's like everything is about sex. And I've seen people complain about this a lot. It's like you can't even have a conversation without it coming up, without it being a topic, without somebody taking something that has absolutely nothing to do with sex and making it about something sexual. It's like so many people's brains now are geared to sex, 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 sex constantly, to a point where I do think there is an issue of hypersexuality, because they will say that it's a medical condition, but I think it's something that is ever growing in our society. And I think it may not be something that's getting checked and or looked at as much, but we can clearly see that there is a problem and an overconsumption and an almost obsession with everything that is sexual. And I think that has a lot to do with the music that we're listening to. I had actually seen, there was a woman on TikTok who said that she went, I think, 30 whole days listening to one particular artist. I won't say who the artist is, but there was one particular artist. Yes, I will. It was Meg Thee Stallion. She listened to Meg Thee Stallion for, I think, 30 days. And she said that by the time she had got to the end of her experiment, her psyche had changed. And I've heard this a lot of about the type of music that you're listening to can shape your thoughts, can change your thoughts, can alter the way you see things, can alter your perception. And we do see an increase of very sexually aggressive music. And normally I would say it's just the Black community, but you also have a rise of certain artists within other communities who a lot of their music is sexually focused, to where I think, and I could be wrong, don't think I am, but I could be, that even subconsciously, we are being trained and programmed to think about sex a lot more to our detriment. You also see it in the movies. It is also being pushed on children. It is being marketed to children in a very slick way. It's a very slick, sinister way that they're doing this, to where even, as kids, you may hear some inappropriate jokes going around, but what I hear from teachers and even just other people out, how sexual these children are, it's a lot worse than it was when we were children. And we have to ask, how, why, where is this coming from? Pay very close attention to what's happening here. So on this channel, I always say that we talk a lot about home life. So, motherhood, mental health, cooking, recipes, cleaning, all the things. So one might ask, well, what does this particular topic have to do with me being at home? It can have a lot to do with our home life, not only because if you are partaking in certain things and then you try to settle down and get married, you need to understand the mental, emotional, and physical consequences that comes with promiscuity and how that can affect your home life, how that can affect your mental health, how that can affect you being able to fully bond with your spouse, the issues that may cause between the two of you because of the past that you have. That's one set of problems. But even in addition to that, our children, what's being pushed to our children, what our children are seeing if they're on these social media apps, which I do not recommend children being on social media at all. But I know that there are some TikTok parents out there. That's your business. But just understand that app is no longer a children's app. TikTok is very sexual. It doesn't matter the algorithm. At some point, it's going to pop up. And if your children are on these apps, you can bet your bottom dollar it is affecting them. So though we're going to talk about, I don't know, soup recipes and mental health and all the different things that encompass being a mother in the home, this is something, the important conversations that we need to be having, because this is the world that we live in now, and this is the world that our children live in. And we can't go around with a blindfold on because we don't want to hear it and we don't want to talk about it. No, we need to have these conversations so we can better prepare our children for the lives that they're leading, for the things that they hear, for the peer pressure, for what's being discussed. These are conversations that need to be had, even with you in the house trying to be a great homemaker, a great mother, and a great wife. These conversations do apply to you. So you need to also be a part of them. And that's why this conversation is so important to be had on this channel, whether you are already a mother in the home or if you are somebody who at some point wishes to have a family. Know what it is you're entering into, know what it is you're up against out there, and how that could trickle into your home if you do decide at some point to settle down and try to start your life and start your family. It's an important conversation for us to have. So beyond public health, what are some of the other impacts of a hypersexual, oversexual culture? Well, for one, we are seeing increased divorce rates and weakened marriages. People who are struggling to bond, whether it's because they have unrealistic expectations due to porn, or whether it's because you have had other partners and now you're comparing the partner that you have now. There's just so many things that can go into why divorce rates are higher and marriages are weaker. There's a lot of temptation. There's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of a false sense of having options, to where now when you're trying to actually have a marriage, you can't even find a solid foundation and or grounding if one of you are encompassed by temptation, if one of you have given into lust, or if you haven't gotten over that one sexual partner that you had in the past. There's a lot that goes into that, which is why I think it is such a problem. Also, we have higher levels of addiction to sexual content, especially among young women. The amount of young women who are addicted to porn and purchasing sex work subscriptions and all the things, it's astronomical. And the studies behind what porn does to the psyche and the mental health of a man, that's a completely different conversation, but it's something I strongly suggest you look into, because we can sit here and talk about women and them being sex workers all day long, but if you are purchasing that sex work, you are absolutely a part of the problem. You are also complicit, and you need to know how it's affecting you on the other end. So definitely something that you should look into. Also, we have increased cases of sexual abuse and dating. We have more frequent experiences of loneliness and a lack of real connection between men and women. So, studies have actually shown that there's a link between hypersexuality and mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, and low self esteem are on the rise, particularly among those who engage in casual relationships without emotional depth. Social media reinforces this daily, exposing young people to a steady stream of hypersexual content. Now, here's what is interesting to me. There is a certain tweet that I want to bring to our attention. Take a look at this one here. I'm actually getting ready to read it to you, and I'll tell you why I brought it up. She says, casual sex is only meant for self-satisfaction and relaxation. You don't have to love every person you have sex with, and stop letting these non-sex havers online and offline try to tell you it's unbecoming because everybody participates in casual sex. Live in reality. So I want to go back to what I just read, where it says, and I quote, Studies have shown that there is a link between hypersexuality and mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, and low self esteem are on the rise, particularly among those who engage in casual relationships without emotional depth. Social media reinforces this daily, exposing young people to a steady stream of hypersexual content. Here is what I am not understanding, and just on a basic level, explain this to me. Matter of fact, don't explain it because even if you did, it would be a crock of bull. So casual sex is just, it's really just as simple as shaking hands, right? Explain to me what is casual. Matter of fact, help me with what is the definition of casual? Hold please. The definition of casual is relaxed and unconcerned. Some synonyms would be friendly, informal, free and easy, open, and laid back. Casual sex, right? Explain to me what is casual about you entering inside of somebody's body cavity. You quite literally cannot get any closer to a person than that unless you're a surgeon. How is it that somebody being inside of your body, the one body that you have, are you entering into somebody else's body? We have convinced ourselves that that is a simple thing, that is a casual thing, and it's just not that deep. Are you serious? You can lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to me. If sex is so casual, how is it a direct correlation between casual sex and a lack of emotional connection and mental health issues? How is it that you can clearly see when you see a woman who just starts off as sex work and you look at her again about 2 years later, you can see a difference in her countenance. The light is gone from her eyes. It's something that they call dead eyes. You can see it. How is it that if it's so simple and it's so casual that the more promiscuous you are, it makes it harder for you to bond with your partner? That when you are more promiscuous, there's a better chance of you not having a successful marriage because you have so many other things to refer back to compare it to. You can't even really rest and have peace with that one person because you have exposed yourself to chaos for so long. But we're going to look at each other and say that it's just casual and it's not that deep. If it was not that deep, if I could go shake 10 people's hand, I would be perfectly fine. Go sleep with 10 people and tell me that you're just as fine. You're not, because it's not as casual as they are trying to convince you that it is. And you can clearly see it. And this isn't even just my opinion. We're talking about data. Studies are showing that the more you sleep around, the less happy you are. You have a much better chance of being depressed, having anxiety, being stressed out, being overstimulated when you are collecting partners like Pokemon cards. But it's just casual. It's cool. We just doing what we do. Give me a second. While we're on the topic of the push of hypersexuality or an over sexual culture, something really interesting happened this past couple weeks after Kamala lost the election. Now there was a lot of talk of women fearing that they were going to lose their rights, etc. But here's what's interesting. Prior to Kamala losing the election, it was always said that sexual liberation was solely about women having the autonomy with their bodies to be able to protect themselves or to stay safe or to not be taken advantage of or treated like it's the handmaid's tale and all these different things. And that in no way was it about being able to have sex with whatever man, woman, whatever is in between these days, furries, I don't freaking know, to be able to sleep with whomever, whenever you wanted to, and that you could be pretty much as reckless as you want, and nobody could hold you accountable, or nobody could quote unquote judge you and or shame you for that. It was said that that's not what the sexual liberation movement was about. But what I find to be very interesting is that after Kamala lost the election, the rise in tweets like the ones I'm getting ready to show you now, and I will read them all to you, and then you tell me what conclusion you came to. Here is one, and I quote, "Stop having sex with men, period. Stop having sex with men you don't know, with men you can't verify will stay with you, with men who want to get people pregnant, with men who you think you can fix, all of them. Stop having sex with men. They don't care about you." The next tweet goes a little something like this. "Ladies, I'm being so for real when I say this. It's time to close off your wombs to males. This election proves now more than ever that they hate us and hate us proudly. Do not reward them." She then follows up by saying, "I am very much a radical feminist. I just don't talk about it much." But I'm literally so serious. Guard your womb. Seriously. If you choose to be with a male, make sure he actually values and respects you as a human effing being. This is ridiculous. Class, why weren't we doing that anyway? Why was that not the standard prior to you fearing that you may not be able to abort your child? So it took for you to lose imaginary rights, because that's not even what's getting ready to happen. It took for you to lose imaginary rights for you to say, hey guys, we may want to stop having sex with men we don't know. Hey guys, it might be a good idea to guard our wombs with who impregnates us. Hey everyone, we may want to start choosing men who are going to value and love us and not leave us and abandon us if we get pregnant. Hey everyone, let's start using discernment with the men that we sleep with. Everything that we had already been saying prior to this election, everything I got called a pick me for, everything those of us who stands up against this push on sexual liberation and hypersexuality, everything that we were trying to tell women to do, it took for you to feel like you would no longer be able to abort your baby and use abortion as a form of birth control in order for them to say, hey, maybe we should reconsider how it is we're using our bodies and not being so careless and reckless with our wombs. What are we talking about? So, which then goes to prove my point and to prove a lot of our points, that though you can pretend like the sexual liberation is we're just trying to rescue women for the misogynistic patriarchy, it was really about you being able to be as reckless as you want with your bodies, because you knew at the end of the day, if you were to get pregnant, you could go do away with that real quick. As they call it, they could just go delete his fetus and just run to the clinic and take care of it. You've told on yourselves. So then we are not wrong in saying, hey, you're pushing something that is not healthy for you and the other women around you. I felt like I was living in the Twilight Zone. How now it was okay for everybody to be like, hey guys, yeah, we're gonna be more mindful about the men that we choose. But then prior to when I would say, hey, this is the lifestyle you don't want. You don't want to end up being a single mother. You don't want to carry the child of a man who does not care about you, who does not value you or that baby. You should probably be a little bit more discerning about your decisions. When I said that, there were pitchforks and tiki torches constantly in my comments. Well, people change. You don't know what they're going to end up happening when you get pregnant. You can't decide that. But now, the threat of no more abortions, uh-oh, we got to pick better men. You know what? Let's resume, shall we? Let's resume. So we've already talked about the issues when it comes to, you know, what it does to mental health, emotional health, all the things. But another thing that people don't really think about is the economic and social burdens that it has. The issue has a huge economic cost. So apparently, the CDC estimates that the US spends about $16 billion annually on healthcare directly related to STIs. That's an enormous burden, and one that's preventable with the shift of culture and values. $16 billion because of a lack of sexual discipline, of self respect, self love, and self value. $16 billion. That could be going to so many other things. Our tax dollars are going to STDs, but it's just casual. It ain't that deep. You fine? We good? Okay. All right. All right. So, to kind of hone in a little bit more on the over sexual culture's effect on relationships and intimacy, studies indicate that individuals engaging in frequent casual encounters can struggle to form deep, lasting connections due to an emphasis on transient physical interactions over emotional bonds, which then would go into what I was saying earlier about weakened marriages and divorce rates. Attachment patterns can shift in ways that make long term commitments more challenging. We are seeing an increase of men and women who do not see each other as more than anything other than their body parts. We're seeing an increase in the red pill community. We see an increase in the feminist community, two parts that have completely turned their backs onto each other until it's time to roll around in the bed together. All bets are off then. Outside of that, there is no desire to form deeper connections. There is no desire to emotionally bond. There is no desire to really form real foundations of commitment. I've noticed that nowadays there is no long suffering in relationships. There is no I choose you. Let's work on this together. Let's get through things. It's like the minute something goes wrong, the minute somebody says something you don't like, immediately you're ending relationships, or you're divorcing and you're ending marriages over small things, because there is no ability to really dig your feet down and connect with one another. And I think that this has a lot to do with it, because both sides know, oh, I could just get a divorce and go get with somebody else. Or I could just, there is no more till death do us part. Not really, anyway. And I think that this, amongst other things that would be better fitted for a different video, I think that has a lot to do with this. Aside from the inability to form true, genuine, intimate relationships, you also see a rising rate of loneliness. While hypersexual culture promotes connection through physical relationships, connection, ironically, loneliness has been on the rise, especially among younger generations. Studies suggest that increased emphasis on physical interactions over emotional intimacy can contribute to a pervasive sense of isolation. Well, of course, I think we're probably the most depressed, unhappy, lonely generation there are, which is so interesting considering how much everybody has their face in their phones. Everybody is so engulfed with social media, yet everybody is so lonely. Men are telling themselves that they don't need women, and women are telling themselves that they don't need men, but both sides are miserable. I wonder why. I wonder why. Not to mention social media and the sexualized influences. So, the nature of sexualized content on social media, whether it's through influencers, celebrities, or viral trends, reinforces this culture daily, especially for young people. Children and teens are frequently exposed to hypersexual behavior through platforms they use daily, which, as we clearly see, is affecting the younger generations, and we can see that in the data. We are being programmed to operate out of nothing but lust. Men and women are now being made to see each other as something to do, not as humans with human experiences, as people that you want to take some time to get to know. It's simply, can you make me feel good? What can you do to my body? And how many other people can I do this with? We're being pitted against each other in all the ways, like I said, except for when it comes to sleeping with one another. And what is so interestingly ironic to me is, you would think with all these failed relationships and so much talk about situationships, and he did me wrong and she did me wrong, and just all the mess that comes along with sleeping with people that you are not committed to, and stepping out on relationships and marriages, like all these different things that are going on. At some point, when do we stop and say, this is not working? Like, there has to be a better way. There has to be more to it than just this. When you lie in bed at night, and if you're honest with yourself, you're upset and you're sad because you're laying there alone. At what point do you say, I need to start doing something different? Because the way in which they're telling me to go, I'm unhappy here. I'm depressed here. I'm lonely here. I'm sad here. No, everybody just wants to sit up on social media and bitter back and forth, and be bitter towards the opposite sex. But then these are the same people that you are allowing inside of your body, or the same people that you are then sleeping with. We've got to get back to making it make sense. Make it make sense again. Make it, I need that on a red hat. Make it make sense again, because guys, it's not making any sense. We're not making sense. It's just bumping uglies and vibes. What is going on? You are being tricked, bamboozled, and hoodwinked out of loving and valuing yourself. And you are being tricked into putting your health at risk and the health of the other people that you lay with. You are being lied to. And at some point, it becomes willful, because we have got to turn our brains back on and start thinking about what it is we're being told and the results in which that we're seeing. And the math is not math. And I've never been really good at math, but I know one thing: 2 plus 2 equals 4. Right now it's equal to 16. It's not making sense. We are being made enemies of our own bodies, which takes me to 1 Corinthians 6:18. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside of the body, but the sexual immoral person sins against his own body. We are putting our own bodies at risk, our own lives at risk, our own health at risk. I seen a tweet once that said, verbatim, I believe he said something like, I see why God told us to wait until marriage. It starts to make sense when you look at it, doesn't it? A little bit. The Most High does not make mistakes. There is a reason we were told to do things a certain way, because it's gotten out of control. So much so that if you even recommend abstinence, you are demonized, which is so interesting to me, because if the way that we're going about it is working so well, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. The statistics should not be here. The research should not be here telling us in agreement, whether they realize it or not, with the Most High, this is not working. So it's no wonder when I look at the condition of male and female relationships, specifically in my community, because that's the community that I'm part of. So that's the one that I see the most. There is no wonder why so many of us struggle to form deep and long lasting connections with one another. Most of us don't even know how. A lot of us have never seen it. We've never partaken in it, because all we know is toxicity and these type of relationships, or casual sex encounters. There are so many of us who don't even know what it feels like to be wanted as the person you are, not for your body, not what you can physically do for somebody, but there's so many of us who don't know what it feels like to truly be desired outside of the bedroom, because that's all you've been taught how to do or what to do. Which takes me to Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. It is not supposed to be this way. It was never supposed to be this way. Look at the mess we've caused. We could complain about it all day, but at some point we need to start talking about how to dial it back, because we have lost our way. And the data shows that. Even if you claim to not be someone who follows scripture, the data aligns. And in my opinion, it's all connected. The further they push us into hypersexuality, the further they push us away from the Most High. The further we get into lawlessness and recklessness, the further they can pull us away from the Most High. I leave you with this gentle reminder. You do not have to give your body up in order to be seen, loved, and or cared for. That is not the way. And it is time to start operating with some wisdom and discernment, and stop letting the world tell you to give your body away simply because it's fun. Nothing good can come from degrading and devaluing yourself. And there's nothing casual about it. And at the end of the day, everything has a price. So stop paying with your soul. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That is Romans 12:2. But that is all I have to say on the matter for now. There's so much more that can be discussed when it comes to this topic, because the rabbit hole is deep. I can go further, I promise. But thank you so much for coming to sit with me here at Mama's at Home, where you come for the truth and you also stick around for the recipes and all the other things that we will have here on this channel. Before you leave, do not forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. And I will talk to you all soon. Bye.